Well, welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm Dan Conger, Baseline's training manager, and my guest today is Greg Goudeau. Greg, would you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Greg Goudeau. I'm the Baseline Regional Sales Manager for the Mid-Atlantic and going out into the Midwest. And today, you can see I'm in my truck. I'm visiting some Baseline customers in the Charleston, South Carolina area.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm in my office in San Diego, California, so I'm not traveling today. So fantastic. Well, today we're talking about coaches buttons on sports facilities. That's our very narrow topic, but we're going to widen it in a bit and kind of see on some other ways to use them and kind of maybe get creative with them. So first thing I want to start off with is what's a coaches button. So let me bring up I've got a little bit of content, or mainly some pictures that I want to share. So a coach's button, this is a coach's button, and our part number is a BL5401. A coach's button has two things in it, right? So it's got the momentary contact switch, that red button on the front. You press it and let go. It's in a waterproof housing. And then behind that is actually an event bicoder. In this case, it's just the circuit board. So this is a coach's button, mainly what we're talking about. The other component, the other sister to this one, if you will, is a event bicoder, or the BL5402. So if you just took this circuit board out and then put it in the housing and added a switch, it would be very similar, not identical, to the 5401. But today we're talking about this, the first one. We're talking about this one. So that's really what the components, the hardware we're looking at. So let's talk about the difference between the coach's button and an event bicoder. And Greg, if I'm putting you on the spot, I'll save you here. But what do you think the difference is between the coach's button and just the straight event bicoder? Now, I'm going to start off by saying both of these devices need to be connected to the 2-wire path. Okay, so that's first one off.
Right. So it's my understanding that the coach's button is just simply a button press. It's either on or off. It's usually in the on position, and so you push the button and it triggers a response. The event bicoder, that could be hooked up to many other different other switches that you have in your system.
That, I would say, that's the primary difference. So a coach's button comes with a switch, and it's a momentary contact switch. So contacts are open, you push it and they close, and then as soon as you let go, they spring open. So that's the type of switch that it uses. An event bicoder is meant for your switch, and it's always on or always off switch. So light switches are always on, always off. A rain switch, like a rain click, is always on. A pump contact indicator. But so an event bicoder, now we can take anybody's switch and bring it into our system. Coach's button it uses our switch. Purposes on those two. So we already started to talk about the event bicoder bringing other people's hardware in. I like to think of a coach's button as a sensor that just tells it somebody was there. We know someone was there because the button got pushed. Right?
Great point. Absolutely.
Now, what are you going to do with that information that someone's there? Don't know. These buttons or event bicoders do nothing else other than saying, I've had a switch change state. So someone's pressed it, or some other switch just opened or closed. That's it. Well, you've been around Baseline long enough to know that we like hardware, but it's really about what are we going to do with the hardware. So yeah, let's talk about what we're going to do with this sensor input. So the three things, they're the start, stop, or pause conditions. So this is the programming part we can take with the sensor input. We can start a program, stop a program, or pause any program. Now, Greg, what would happen? I just said program. What would happen if I just want to stop or start just one zone? I can't. How would I do that? Well, can I do that?
Well, I think that can be programmed on the back end, right?
How many programs do we have on a 3200?
A lot.
99 programs. All you got to do is put that one zone in its own program.
Yep.
and then you start that program. So we were done with that one. That was easy. So let's look at a real high level example of a start condition. So a start condition, so most common one is time, right? Every program starts at 7 p.m. on a Monday or a Wednesday or a Friday. Time and date is a condition in which it can start. Okay, that's a classic start. But maybe you're used to your pump being connected to your main line, and when the pressure drops, that starts the pump. Well, that's in a way that's like a start condition. So there's one example, two examples of start conditions. A stop example might be I get an inch of rain from my precip sensor or my rain sensor, right? So I've got an inch of rain, and I said that's enough, and just stop. And maybe a pause might be, I know, I've got multiple programs that are starting to stack and overlap each other.
Yeah.
Well, one comes along and it takes priority, and it says, I'm more important than you. It's not going to stop those programs. It's going to pause those and put those into a temporary wait. So as soon as that condition changes, they'll resume right back over. So pause conditions are really powerful. So there's start, stop, and pause. This is where I get excited, right? Is that blending of hardware from any sensor, but today we're talking about, this coach's button. We're going to blend this hardware with the start, stop, pause. Huge potential. Right? And when I was in a baseline training years ago, and Chris and Nick were talking about start, stop, and pause, and all of a sudden this light bulb went on, and like my mind was blown. It's like, wait, there's anything you can do, and it doesn't have to be irrigation. So maybe we'll get to some examples later on. So let's take a look. I've got just one quick idea. Let's look at this guy and what he wants to do. So this coach wants to wet down an infield before every game. So he's out there with his hose and he's wetting it down, but there's rotors that wet down the infield. Like, can't we use those? That'd be really cool if we could use those. So let's figure out how to make that, to give that coach some access to that controller, to give them the ability to start just a couple of zones, just a couple of zones to wet down the infield, but to limit it. So we're going to create a start condition. So let's program that, and I'm going to do a program here. So I'm still logged into Base Manager. So follow along as we program this on my demo controller. So I'm going to go right to schedules. So one of the first things we have to do is we have to have the zones that we want to influence in their own program. I've already done that. Program 3, I've got the big rotors for the infield. They're in their own program. Now I've got big rotors. That's the outfield, but the big rotors for the infield are on their own dedicated program. So I'm going to influence just this program.
Yep.
So let's go in, and I'm going to go to edit mode on this one. So here's those 3 zones, 23, 24, and 25. And currently this has a start condition of 1 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay, that needs that for its normal irrigation. I'm going to give it a start condition. Actually, I'm going to give it an additional start condition. So right here, I'm going to click add a condition. I have options. I could start, stop, or pause. So start is good. And we want to start this based off an event switch. So my event switch is right here, right? Because a coach's button is a type of event switch.
Right.
When I did that, what happened is these are the devices that are my event switches. So serial number 309 is the coach's button. 934 is not the one I want, nor is 936. So we're going to select 309. The contacts, I need to know something about the contacts themselves. So the contacts are normally open, but when they close, so I'm going to say when the contacts close, start the program. So all I got to do now is save this. And of course, I've got to have that device connected to the wire path. And when this coach presses that button, it starts the program and runs it for as long as I set it. Now, what I might do is I have this as I don't know. So if my rotors, I think they were running for about 45 minutes. What do you think, Greg? Do you think 45 minutes is too long to wet down the infield? If
It
we just
probably is.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe what I should do then is clone that program and have a infield wet down program. So when it needs to water the turf, let it run for 45 minutes.
Yep.
But when the coach wants to run it, it just runs for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. Would have to experiment on that one.
Right.
So,
And that gives the coach the ability to push that button maybe a couple times. If you shorten the cycle and he decides he wants it a little bit wetter. Yeah.
That's a excellent point, right? So if and this is something that comes up in my trainings, if someone pressed the button 4 times in a row, well, it looks like we lost Greg. Okay, we're going to continue without him. Maybe he'll jump back in. If they press the button 4 times in a row, they don't get additional time. It just resets the clock. So to Greg's point, if we said give them 3 minutes, they press the button, they get 3 minutes. And he's like, I need a little bit more. Press it again, he gets another 3 minutes. So that's a possibility. So I like that idea. Okay, so that's one concept is using a start condition with the coach's button to start the program. So I've got another one. So this one, let's take a look at this scenario. So this one is actually the exact opposite. Greg, have you jumped back in yet?
Yes, my apologies. The magic of technology while I'm on the road. Of course, someone else tried to call, right?
I thought you were doing so good. We don't have video on you, but we got you in audio, so we'll make that work. Okay, so we've got now the exact opposite on this one. The irrigation is running because it's, as a water manager, you're doing what needs to be done, and they're going to have a soccer tournament this weekend, or they're going to play football on Tuesdays, but alternating Tuesdays, and they don't know what their schedule is. So they're just going to water. You're going to water the way it needs to be. Okay. So we were going to use a coach's button. We've got that. And so we've already done a start condition. So we're going to either allow the coach to stop the irrigation or pause the irrigation. Which do you choose, Greg?
Well, so I'm certainly going to choose a pause. But, the coach himself doesn't know the difference between a pause and a start. You and I, as water managers, we're going to give him a pause.
Okay. Because what would happen if we gave him a stop condition?
Well, that's going to completely stop the program's cycle time.
Right. So that it will not start until the next start condition comes around, and it could be in a couple of days. Well, if it's peak summer and you've got to figure out when this needs to water, that could be, well, essentially what you've done is you've given this ball coach the ability to manage your water. We don't want that. So we're going to set up a pause condition. And as soon as that pause time is over, it's going to resume right back where it left off. So it does not wipe it out. So let's set up a pause condition to make this happen. So we're going to go back into a program. So this one, we're going to do program 2. And let's go to edit program 2. And let's do on this one, we've already got the start condition. Okay. But I'm going to add another condition on here. And this time it's going to be a pause condition because that's what we voted for. It's a paused, not based on moisture. It's based off of my event switch. And there we go. Got the right events, the right serial number. And when the contacts close, because they're normally open, when the contacts close, we're going to pause. So what do you think? I'm thinking at least 4 hours. Maybe should we give them a little bit longer? Or is 4 hours enough?
Well, it depends on the practice load that the coach has. But yeah, 4 hours sounds good.
Okay, so we'll try 4 hours. So let's save this. So what's going to happen now is we've created a pause condition. So anytime the irrigation's running, the coach can come up and anytime this program is running, not only this program, not all of my irrigation, anytime this program is running, the coach can come up, press that button, and it will pause the irrigation for 4 hours.
Yep.
As to your point, The coach thinks it's stopped. Well, yeah, it's a temporary stop. After 4 hours, it resumes right where it left off.
Right.
And if it was, 1 hour into a 5-hour program, it owes it 4 hours. It's got to pay those 4 hours back. And then it continues on. So ultimately, we didn't influence my overall water that was applied to the turf. We've just delayed it. We've changed it off, moved it around. I kind of like that one. Another pause condition that I've used, a scenario that I've used, is actually with a vent bicoder. So I've actually used this piece of hardware and connected that to a rain switch. So like a rain click style switch. And then you could set up a pause condition, and you could say, anytime you get measurable irrigation, pause for, X hours. And see, where I live in the Southwest, right, we have water restrictions again coming up this year. They're just ramping up, and we're going to start issuing water tickets. Well, anytime after a measurable rain event, if you water, someone's getting a ticket. And it's not whether the plant material needs it, but so I could set up a pause condition and say, after any irrigation, pause for 24 hours. So it delays it a day, and then it picks right back up. So that's another pause condition using that one. Okay, let's take a look at a stop condition. So this one, a little bit different. This one, so sports managers or anybody that manages turf kind of knows that, especially schools, that ball fields are unfortunately, they're multi-purpose. I was thinking about this. Both my high school and my college graduations were on the ball field, right? You got stadiums, you can put guests in there, and you put all the students out on the field, and it's hell on the turf grass, but that's what you've got. So could you imagine being responsible for the irrigation, and you've got the ball field just full up with people, and you hear that rushing of air coming out of heads? What does that mean? Well, for people that don't, the uninitiated, right? That is the sound of terror. That means that your irrigation is about to come on. It's blowing the air out of the lines, and water's not far behind.
And it's happened.
Yeah. Well, there's actually some great footage of at the US Open, there is a big rotor, and it's just gunning some poor person in the side of the head. Or I've seen some West Point cadets standing at attention, and they're just getting drilled.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So what are we going to do on this one? Well, I'm going to use a coach's button, and I'm going to use it in an oh crap configuration. It's the unofficial.
Yes.
So, okay. So the idea is we're going to create a stop condition, and a couple different ways we could do a stop condition, right? So I could do a stop condition for an individual program. So I did a start and a pause, but I could just go back in and say, stop this program. That's a possibility. Or maybe I want to stop everything. I want to stop all programs, like water anywhere. It's not just in the ball field. It's it's in the parking areas, in the school. And today is not the day to run irrigation. And I think I said it, but maybe I didn't, or Greg told me and I forgot. And I was talking to my wife on the phone. So of course we can use the coach's button. Now this is something that we could put in a prominent area. We could put this, in an area that staff has access to. And we're going to call this the oh crap button. We could even put a sign on it. Anytime irrigation is running or starting to run, anybody, so security, maintenance, whoever, anybody could press this button and it would stop all irrigation. A slight difference here, right? So if I wanted to stop every single program, I can't do that. I have to go a slightly different axis. I either have to do it at the controller, or I have to do it through live view, which is an electronic access to the controller. If I want to do just the program, I can do it through regular base manager, but then I could create a stop condition for that one. That's the oh crap button. Now, maybe something that's a little bit more realistic, a little bit more common, might be precip sensor, right? So this was kind of an interesting idea, and I hadn't thought about it until we introduced the precip sensor. So I'm gonna layer on two conditions. So let's do that. Since we got a minute here, I'm gonna I'm gonna do a pause condition and a stop condition all together. So I'm going to just do it for a program because I think it'll show better in Base Manager. But so let's go to edit mode, and I'm going to add a condition, and I'm going to do a pause condition based on my tipping rain bucket or precip sensor. I only have one in there, okay? And I'm going to say if we have a rate, let's do an accumulation of the least amount. I'm going to do 0.1 inches in 1 hour. I'm going to just say, give me a pause for an hour. So what I've just said is, if you have a trace amount of rainfall, just pause. Decide if it's worth stopping. And then I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to add a stop condition based off of tipping rain bucket. And this time I'm going to do an accumulation, and we're going to say I'm going to give it more than an inch in 24 hours. So what I've said is, let's save this. So what we can do is we can say, if I get a little bit of rain, pause and decide, do I really want to be irrigating in the rain? Because nobody likes to see that. And then if it continues raining, then I'll have an accumulation, and when it reaches that tipping point, just stop, and then any other programs will clear out. So start, stop, or pause, they're in there.
Yep.
I just saw a couple good questions pop up in the chat. So
I saw a great question about multiple coaches buttons.
Yeah, and this actually comes up not too uncommon. So Gary said, can you use multiple coaches button for one start, stop, or pause? There's probably a two-part one that I need to find out. But first one is, if you want to start, and you can't, to have a start and a stop, you need two different buttons. Okay, I can have, so if I want, and this is actually really common, a sand volleyball court. These people want to manage that moisture perfectly. So they can have one button to start it, and what you might do is you might give it a long time. And then they're like, whoa, that was enough. They can press it and then press the other button and stop it. So they start and stop, two different serial numbers.
Yep.
Yeah. Could I have, this is one I need to research because I don't immediately know. Could I have multiple buttons influence the entire controller? I think you could, and I need to find that out. Could I have, I need to do some research on that, because actually I need to do some more experimenting. I need to go back to my laboratory and play around. But I do know for the sand volleyball, two different buttons for a start and a stop. Okay. Okay, so then Ed said, as he's seen a large volume sprinkler deliver an enema to an unsuspecting golfer. Oh boy. Yeah, that I can only imagine how bad that must be, because it's high gallon, but high pressure. Ooh, yeah, not pleasant. Okay, so question for you, since we got a couple minutes, I'd love to hear some either uses for coaches buttons that you all have done, or uses for start, stop, and pause conditions that you all have done. Drop those in the chat and share them, and I'd love to hear those. Or even better is, could I use a coaches button for this? And because Greg and I prepared we have some ideas in our head on some, maybe you could do it for this. So yeah, let's see if they have any ideas.
Think beyond irrigation.
Wait, you mean not just sprinklers?
Not just sprinklers.
Okay.
Anything that you're going to turn on and off with a switch.
Okay, so what? So an irrigate. So okay. So Brian Young. So Brian said lighting. So let's pick apart lighting. Okay. Yeah. So how about a coach's button to start a program that runs tennis court lights, and the program, so they'll have to have a relay connected to that one. And I put a start condition. The program runs for, I don't know, how long does a game of tennis last? 2 hours. Program starts and runs for 2 hours, and after 2 hours it ends. And if they're still there, they can press it again. But I will never have the lights on when nobody's there unless they press it and walk away. And since it's a start condition, I can put a water window on it and restrict the days or the times in which it's used. That was brilliant. Brian, thank you. Thank you for that contribution. Jim White says 2 pressure differential gauges for filtering or for soak cycles. So, okay, so we could use pressure pretty much, right? Now we're starting to think other sensors too. We could use pressure to start, stop, or pause a program. Okay, so I think I've got my I do have my pressure. Fish it out without making too much noise. So we could use a pressure transducer as a sensor, and we could say pause irrigation if pressure drops below, I don't know, depends on your rotors. My rotors need at least 50 psi. Anytime the pressure drops below 40 psi, pause my irrigation because the DU is garbage, and resume when the pressure comes back up. Yeah, that's a great pause condition off of a different sensor. Brilliant. What did Tom had something. He says, stop all irrigation. Ooh, this is another oh crap one I've heard. Stop all irrigation and start fire suppression zones. Okay. The one I've heard of a scenario that's more part of that one is the oh crap button, stop all irrigation, because I want my mainline pressure to go to firefighting efforts. Right. So if you're in the West, right, or wherever you are, you might have wildfire that would threaten your campus or your place. Having sports turf that looks impeccable and the buildings burn down, that's not. So yeah, that would be a great oh crap. Brilliant. So I guess my challenge to everybody, think about what you want to do, and not to Greg's point, not just irrigation, and figure out and then ask us the question: how can I start this? How can I stop that? How can I pause this with a whatever? Because we were talking about some crazy things, right? You could, how about this one? You could turn on your lights when the pressure is above 100 psi. Oh, unless you wanted to turn on a warning light, right? That would be a start, stop, a pause condition based off of a sensor input. You could do pretty crazy things. You could turn on the coffee maker when this gets started. Just now working a relay. Wow. It's like, what can't you do? Beautiful. Awesome. So Greg, any other thoughts? I think we're almost out of time. So we're just going to button it up in here in a minute.
These are great questions that I've seen come through. And back to the fire suppression, I have seen that I've been asked how to do that type of thing by several customers in the past. A park facility, ball field facility that also has an event space, a big tent, temporary tent usually, or a semi-permanent tent, I should say. And it's large enough that it's required to have fire suppression. So yeah, that's absolutely a great idea.
Yeah, we've got the technology. So, and it's already in the system that's running your irrigation. Maybe it's not the reason people are going to buy the system, but it's a great value add. Right. One last thing about the hardware for a coach's button, though, is you do want to have it in either in a semi-secure location or in a locked cabinet. This isn't really securable, and it's plastic. It's just a plastic box. It's standard electrical size. So, right, because if you're going to start a firefighting program or stop something, do you really want to let the kids at 2 o'clock in the morning pressing it screw around with it? Probably not. We actually, I think we did a special build for someone where we took a standard controller cabinet and put this inside. So you had a CH751 key to open this, or you could find some other way to look. It could be, if you can get 2-wire into someone's office, you could mount it in that office. You could mount that anywhere. It just needs to be connected to the 2-wire path. Oh,
Yep.
One last concept, and then we're out of time. If someone was running conventional wire, can they not use this? It does need to connect to the 2-wire path. Okay, this is my R board, my conventional wire board. The last 2 terminals here, I've got 2-wire here. So you may need to run 2-wire to it, but you can still run it on conventional or 2-wire. Worst case scenario, your device is mounted on the side of your pedestal. That would be okay too, but your pedestal can still be locked. So coaches buttons are event by coders. Start, stop, pause. Each of those are crazy powerful. Combine them together, man, it's pretty much limitless. So come up with some ideas, shoot them by us. We'll help you figure out how to execute. Fantastic. Greg, hey, thanks for joining us. We'll let you get back to your customers. We appreciate your time while you're out on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dan. This is fun.
Fantastic. Good to see you all. We'll see you next time. I think Chris and Andy are the next ones up for the next schedule, and hope to see you on the next Tech Talk Tuesday webinar. Thanks all. Take care, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Bye.